Remember the cards. That's our hint. And you'll have a chance to make a mint on Cut Shark. And here's the host of Cut Shark, Jim Perry.
Hey, Dad. Thank you very much. Welcome to Cut Shark. We're delighted to have you here. Hello there, Gene Wood. And the opening poem, thank you. The opening poem sent in by Harold McClellan of Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin. That's logical. Wisconsin Rapids, New Jersey would sound a little silly. Harold is watching us on WFRV-TV, Channel 5. We thank you. Now let's open the board and get to the cards. Janice and Lois, if you will, start loading in the cards. Here comes our card charts. Our champion, Kerstin Cabral. Hello, Kerstin.
Hello.
Nice to see you again.
Thank you very much.
And again, won't you tell us about yourself?
I'm Kerstin Cabral. I live in Riverside. I'm originally from a small town in Germany, just south of Amsterdam. I lived there half my childhood, was adopted, lived in Seattle the other half, came to Southern California, fell in love with the weather and the guys, and I love animals. I have 2 dogs, Handsome Poopsie and Susan, 2 cats, Missy and Benji, a parakeet Junior, and a cricket Charlie. And I'm very happy.
I didn't ask you about you have a pet cricket. You keep him in a box or something?
He lives in the bathroom, and he comes out in the hall at nighttime, because when I go to the bathroom at night, I turn on the light, and there he is sitting right on the carpet.
How do you know it's the same cricket?
Because it's got 3 red stripes down its back, and it's just a particular size, and I'm just sure that's Charlie every night.
Oh, makes sense to me. I'll tell you another thing that makes sense to me. Kerstin, with 1 crack in the money cards, won $4,500 in our last show. Good champion. Ed Elder is our challenger. Hi, Ed. Good to see you again. I'm fine. And again, a little reminder about yourself.
Okay, Jim, I'm Ed Elder. I'm a single man from Phoenix, Arizona, and a pilot. I work for a major insurance company in Arizona. Oh, incidentally, a lot of my customers, some of the older gals out in Sun City said, tell Jim Perry he is beautiful. And they said to give you a kiss, but that wouldn't be too appropriate.
No. Sun City?
Sun City. This is our retirement community.
I've heard about those ladies. They're real swingers out there. I'm going to come out and visit, that's for sure. Thank you for passing along the message.
Maybe you would be welcome, too.
Ed, nice to have you back.
Thank you, Jim.
You both cut the cards at the beginning of the match, yes?
Yes.
Sure did.
Then we'll pick up where we left off. We played the best 2 games out of 3. As we left off, we're in the middle of game number 1. And Kerstin has yet to turn over a card. Ed has moved over. He now has a 7 as his base card. He needs 3 cards for the first game of the match. And we pick up with question 3. It goes to you, Ed. It's question 2, I believe, is it not? Question 2, yes. Ed, we surveyed 100 new fathers. These are all men whose wives have had a baby within the past 6 months. And we asked them, when your wife went into labor, did you start getting pains too? How many new fathers said when their wife went into labor, they also got pains?
Oh, boy. I can relate to that a little bit, because I did get pains when I was married way back when, and I also worked in OB/GYN delivery room while in the service, medical corps. And, well, a few of the fathers did wind up a few pains. I think, psychosomatic pains, but that's going to be low number, 18.
18 out of 100 men got sympathy pains. Kerstin, higher or lower?
Well, I think those are called sympathy pains, and even if they don't get pains physically, I'm sure they may think about the pain in the pocketbook. So I think that number would definitely be higher.
You say higher? If it is higher, you'll play your cards. If not, Ed plays his. And the actual number of new fathers who said when their wife went into labor, they got pains too, is 5. That's all, not higher. Ed, just 5.
Change that card, Jim.
You have a 7, and winning the question, you can change it.
Okay.
A queen.
Fantastic. We're going lower, Jim.
Lower than the queen. Oh, no. The queen is not lower. And that's a break for Kerstin. She gets a free chance at a queen as well.
Lower!
Lower than the queen. A check.
Oh, lower!
Risking it lower. It is a 5.
Freeze!
And we move over the freeze bar. Protects that position for Kerstin. Janice will fill in the space for Ed. Question 3 to you, Kerstin. Kerstin, we asked 100 psychiatrists. Generally speaking, is it a good idea for a man to have his first... What were we just talking about before with the... Excuse me. We asked 100 psychiatrists. Generally speaking, is it a good idea for a man to have his first sexual experience with an older woman? How many psychiatrists said it is a good idea for a man to have his first sexual experience with an older woman?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily a good idea, but I'm sure it's probably more enjoyable for the guy because then he can kind of learn what to do and all that. And all that. So I'm going to say that I'll say 60 psychiatrists will say that it is a good idea that the younger boy should have his first experience with an older woman.
60 psychiatrists said yes. You heard what she said, Ed.
It depends on the experiences you have, you know. Boy, that's a difficult one to answer, just like reading off the question before. But I really believe that's going to be a little bit lower than that, Jim, because they need to get with their own age group to find out what's really happening with their own age group. They don't need all that experience right up front.
So you say lower?
Lower, Jim.
Okay. The actual number of psychiatrists who said it's a good idea for a man to have his first sexual experience with an older woman is 47. Ed is right. It is lower. It was almost half. Ed, you've got a queen.
Let's go lower on that, Jim.
Lower than the queen? This time it is.
Let's put ice on it, freeze it.
And as we freeze it, we have a tie. Each player needs 2 cards, and we're at sudden death. Someone has to win it on this play of the cards. Ed, the question to you. We asked 100 people if you could choose to reduce the amount of advertising on television or the amount of violence. Which would you want to reduce? How many people would choose to reduce the amount of violence on television?
Oh, what's the worst of 2 evils? I mean, every 5 minutes you've got a commercial, but that's what pays for the shows. The violence.
Blessings on you for that one, sir. Yes, indeed.
I realize who's paying the bills around here. So, on violence and
how many would choose to reduce the amount of violence?
I would say at least 85 would say to reduce the violence.
85 out of 100, Kerstin. What do you think?
Well, according to the polls, the higher violence type shows have higher ratings. So I'm going to say that they would choose to have less advertising because perhaps the advertising makes them violent.
So you say...
So I'll say the number is lower.
You say lower. The advertising makes them violent. I like that. 85 for Ed, lower for Kerstin. The actual number of people who would reduce the amount of violence on television is 52. You're right, Kerstin. 52. Now then, we have an interesting board. It is sudden death. You have a 5. You could play it or change it and try to turn over 2 cards. Ed with a 7 needs 2. Play it or pass it.
I'll pass.
You're going to pass it. Ed, that means if you turn them both over, you win. Make 1 mistake. Kerstin has the game with a 7.
Well, we're going to try, wow.
Higher than a 7. No, it's not. Kerstin gets control and wins game 1 in sudden death. Game 1 for the champion. We'll be right back with game 2 right after this. Game 1 to the champion. Janice deals out same 2 decks of cards with the next cards off the top of the deck. And the question goes to you, Kerstin. Kerstin, we asked 100 secretaries. If your boss could overhear today what you say about him behind his back, would you be in the unemployment line tomorrow? How many secretaries said yes? If their boss could hear what they say about him behind his back, they'd be fired.
Well, I think that secretaries must have a very good relationship with their bosses, and they would not be tempted to talk behind his back because that might psychologically hinder their relationship. So I'm going to say that a low number would feel that they'd be in the unemployment line tomorrow if their boss could hear what they said today.
How many?
About 30.
Oh, okay. That's lower.
Thank you very much.
30, says Kerstin. Ed, higher or lower?
Okay, all depends what they're saying behind the back, if it's good or bad, or if it's after hours or during business hours.
Well, I would assume it's bad if they get on the unemployment line.
Yeah.
Well, that's true, but, they could tell a few other little secrets that they should not be talking about, after hours. So, wow, that's a difficult one. I'd say probably a little bit lower than that.
A little lower than 30.
Yeah.
Oh, a little mixture with the audience. If you made your decision at home, the actual number of secretaries who said if their boss could hear what they say about him behind his back, they'd be fired is 21. It is a little lower. Ed, you're right. And with some catching up to do. Ed starts with a 3.
Fantastic. Let's go higher on that one, Jim.
3. It is a king.
Down.
Lower than a king, a 10.
Freeze it.
Right away, the challenger is halfway across the board. And Ed, there has been some talk about reviving the draft. We read about that periodically.
Right.
So we asked 100 United States congressmen in Washington, D.C., do you think most young men would benefit from a year in the Army? How many congressmen think most young men would benefit from a year in the Army?
Oh, most definitely. I think a lot of the young men would benefit a lot. They'd learn a lot. They'd be out on their own a little bit. They'd learn how to take orders, do things like they're supposed to do. That's going to be, let's see, Congressman saying how many...
Congressmen say they think they would benefit by a year.
I would say at least 78 on that, Jim.
78 out of 100 congressmen say yes, most young men would benefit from a year in the Army.
I think that the volunteer draft is working, at least to an extent, and I think that the congressman wouldn't be very popular for long if they publicly held that view. So I'm going to say the number is lower.
It is a confidential poll, of course. You realize that?
Yeah, I'll say the number is lower.
All right, good. And it says 70. Yeah, they really can. And boy, if I ever have to field strip an M1 rifle, I mean, I'm ready. That's definitely a great benefit I got out of that. Ed, you've got 78. Kerstin says lower. The actual number of congressmen who think most young men would benefit from a year in the Army is 81. Not lower. It is even more. 81.
Jim, let's change that card. I can't go on that one.
And doesn't like that one?
Okay.
Well, he's not going to like the 8 anymore.
Let's try higher.
Higher than an 8. Oh, it's not higher. It is lower. Kirsten started smiling as soon as that middle card came up.
I don't blame her.
She gets a free chance at a 9.
Lower.
Lower than a 9. An 8.
Freeze.
Now Kirsten needs 3. Ed needs 2.
Oh, my goodness.
This question goes to you, Kirsten. Kirsten, we asked 100 6th grade boys, do you think falling in love with a girl is one of the dumbest things a guy can do? How many 6th grade boys said falling in love is dumb?
Well, let's see. In 6th grade, boys still don't like girls too much, yet some of them do. So I'll go down the middle of the road with that and say 55 would say that that's a dumb thing to do.
55 out of 100 say it's dumb.
Oh, wow. That's 6th grade boys, you know, they're still learning a lot, too, about love. They like girls. They like going out with girls on a slight basis. What age group is a 6th grader?
6th grade? I don't know. They'd be about 12 or so. Right?
Yeah, 11 or 12.
They're just coming into puberty. They're just starting to learn what girls are. And it is exciting. So, oh, sheesh. I'd say possibly a little bit lower than that.
A little lower than that.
Yeah. That's a toughie.
I got the feeling that Ed wanted Dr. Joyce Brothers standing next to him when he was making his decision. Kirsten, 55. Ed, lower. The actual number of 6th grade boys who said falling in love with a girl is one of the dumbest things a guy can do is 50. It is a little lower. It is right smack up the middle. Ed, you've got an 8.
Okay, let's change that card, Jim. We can't go on.
The middle card becomes an 8. Lower than the ace. Oh, no. Another ace is not lower. Kirsten with an 8.
I'll go lower.
Lower than the 8? No, Jack isn't lower. Couldn't take advantage of it. And as we fill in the spaces, again, we are at sudden death with 2 good players. Ed, we asked 100 married men, does your wife spend more money than you make? How many men said their wife does spend more money than they make?
Oh, this is about to get me in trouble, really.
You're single.
I'm single, that's what I mean, but I was married at one time. Do I spend more than they make? This does not happen too often, although a lot of the wives do really get really carried up with themselves. But let's say 40.
40 out of 100 men said their wives spend more money than they make, Kirsten.
Well, I think that number would be lower because how can they really spend more money than he makes? They certainly go broke and maybe lose their home and stuff. So I'll say that number is lower.
Lower. The actual number of men who said their wife spends more money than they make is 21. Kirsten is right. It is lower. And again, with an 8, which of course you could change and needing 3 cards.
Change that card.
It is sudden death. You could play it or pass it. Your decision. Tough board to look at. Ed with a big ace needs 2 cards. What are you going to do?
I'm going to change it.
You're going to try to do it yourself, huh? She does not like the looks of the ace that Ed has, and she wants to try to do it all herself. And a big change. An ace as well. You need them all. Lower than the ace. Oh, no, another double ace. And Ed ties it up in sudden death. Wow. Yes, the double ace hurt Ed, and the turnaround hurt Kirsten. We have a tie. We'll have the tiebreaker coming at you right after this.